Sometime at the end of 1996, I was engaged by a client from the Middle East to represent his company in connection with a very large project to build oil and gas pipelines from Turkmenistan through Afghanistan to Pakistan and potentially India. I met with the client probably in December of '96, and we discussed what would be involved, and I realized at that time a lot of travel would be necessary. But that was fine with me. In early 1997, actually March of 1997, we traveled from Quetta in Pakistan to Kandahar in Afghanistan. What a trip. There was one road, if you can call it that, with the bomb craters all along the route and other shell-shocked areas, which made the trip exceedingly difficult, up and down, up and down. It took us, I think, 8 hours to go 90 miles. But eventually we reached Kandahar, one of the principal cities in Afghanistan. And I made some notes about my impressions. We stayed at the president's or the governor's guest house in Kandahar. Now, this is not like you would imagine the guest house of the President of the United States or any other country. It was just a ramshackle house along a row of other buildings on the main square, which was a dirt square in Kandahar. In any event, one of the representatives of my client was going to travel to meet with some other people. So he and the other guys with my group left, and I stayed at the governor's guest house. And I'll just read you my notes, first impression of what happened or what I saw during that brief stay. We were on our way ultimately to Almaty in Kazakhstan. And well, how to even begin? Let's just say that before leaving in the morning, I sat on an odd vinyl dinette, if you will, chair at the front gate to the president's guest house and, quote, chewed the fat, unquote, with some Afghani soldiers who were guarding us and various people who dropped from the dust enveloped maelstrom before us. Camels and carts, goats and wagons, women in flowing robes of all description, Afghan soldiers and civilians with blankets and shawls etched in green and red from the flag. Gas cans dangling by rope at the end of a wooden pole slung over the shoulders of young boys carrying water. Young children staring at this strange apparition that is me, the only Westerner in the thousands that passed by in that hour, laughing at the guards while joking in that international language of respect, interest, pantomime, and smiles. It was, as I've described to other people, just like a movie. I expected Steven Spielberg any moment to say, cut, and everybody would take off their costumes and lounge about. It was an amazing scene. I wish I had pictures of it. All kinds of people going back and forth in this rather large dirt square, gathering place, I assume. I believe in the middle of it was a public water trough from which young boys, mostly, would fill gas cans with water. I hate to think that they drank from that, but I'm sure they did. It was quite an experience, obviously. When the representative of my client returned to the guest house, we made preparations for travel to Almaty in Kazakhstan. At that time, on the way to the airport, where there was a jet leased, I guess, by my client, we stopped at the offices of the client in Kandahar. And it was a modern kind of house set apart from others, sort of a split level, to use that term, and well furnished and had all the office equipment you could want. And we just spent a brief time there talking to the manager, whom I knew from the United States and my discussions with the client. Anyway, we proceeded to the airport and were advised at that time that the war, if you will, between the Taliban and the north, or the forces in the north of Afghanistan, were about to end their ceasefire. So we had to leave immediately, and in fact fly a zigzag or other pattern to avoid rockets, which were going to be launched at anything in the air, including us. Interesting experience, needless to say. So we took off hurriedly, and we're safely out of that airspace in not too long a time. And on the way to Almaty, we flew along the ridge of what I guess is the western Himalayan range of mountains. It was spectacular. I thought one of the technical guys that was with us would go right through the windows. British understatement would say that this is geology at its best. They were able to spot an enormous glacier and pointed out the trail it was following. It was truly spectacular. We eventually got to Almaty, which at the time was the capital of Kazakhstan. A year or two later, the capital was moved to a city on the northern border of Kazakhstan, I guess the border with Russia. And it was a new city. It was being built from scratch. And one of the requirements for doing deals in Kazakhstan is that you build an office in this new city, the name of which I cannot remember at the moment. In any event, we eventually got to Almaty, which was a really modern, by comparison to other Central Asian cities, place. And it had all kinds of luxury goods stores, oil wealth, I guess.